Okay, Theo, you've convinced me. We're going to rewrite our old app in the T3 stack. How do I get started, though? It's a scary thing to take on. I absolutely agree there. Like, it is when you have an old app that was written in Ruby on Rails, or you have some bad Drupal deployment that's been dying for a long time. How do you make the move? How do you start on something that's scary? Thankfully, most of the tools we recommend have a lot of surprisingly good solutions to work around those problems that you might run into. And while I might not recommend the most traditional, like granular rewrite approach, there are ways where you can work with old code bases as you port essential pieces over to new and better systems. I want to talk a bit about some of those approaches, the benefits and negatives, and what it takes to be successful in that type of creation. So, if any rant's going to need some Excalibur, it is definitely this one. So there's a few different methods that you could pick for this. I'm just going to list them quick. Method A is the full rewrite. This is the classic start from scratch. B, this is also somewhat common, is start greenfield for new features. Slow port. And C, which is probably what I'm going to go the most into, is a partial rewrite with interop. All of these solutions are pretty viable, or all these paths, I should say, are pretty viable depending on the state of the current code base, the goals, and the plan that you have. I think that there's a few dimensions to consider here. First one is, why are we rewriting? Specifically, are we rewriting because we love this new tech and we don't like this old tech? I'll put some reasons. Tech or enges are unhappy. It's a great reason. Unable to hire for current tech. Team is moving too slow. Current tech blocks specific things. I think that enges are unhappy is a very good reason to rewrite, but if it's the only reason, it's a bad one. Generally, I find that a lot of old code bases, things that like the famous quote that I think 70% or so of the internet is still using jQuery, and a lot of it's using WordPress as well. Those solutions aren't still there because they're great. They're there because those things were made, completed, and they kind of just sit there. Those projects aren't hiring new engineers very often, and when they do, it's like one person every long while to replace someone else. Those systems aren't being worked on a lot. So if you do need to hire somebody and you're struggling, maybe at that point you rewrite. Maybe there's a feature that new tech enables that the old tech doesn't. At that point, you might consider porting. But if the systems existed for a while and it's working fine, it is very easy to kind of trick yourself into jumping onto a rewrite earlier than you need to, and in a way that doesn't benefit you significantly. However, if you're trying to deliver features and your engineers are unhappy and they're moving slowly and there's some new tech that they're very excited about, you should probably find a way to let them work on that thing, especially if you're like a CEO, CTO, tech lead of some form. Take those opportunities, because nothing will get your engineers more hyped. Nothing will get them delivering more effectively than picking some tech they're hyped on and it working. Even if it doesn't work, the amount of buy-in that they get from that and how good it feels is going to build a lot of trust and help maintain a lot of energy that you might have lost otherwise. So I'm a big fan of letting the engineers do the rewrites and do the huge scary changes if it will help them move faster on things that still matter and they are bought in and excited about those things. All of that said, we need to think a lot about how we do the rewrite to make sure it benefits us in the considerations that we make here. So let's take an example of an old Rails app. And so we have our old Rails app here. Let's say we got 8 engineers, 5 years of working on it, 800,000 lines of code, 70 different routes, 50 API endpoints. So because it's Rails, they're probably just serving things via the HTML, but they might have API endpoints as well. I don't want to get too strict about that. Don't want to distract with it. So yeah, we have this old Rails app, reasonable spec, lots of code, lots of routes, lots to think about here. They just hired a new engineer, a really excited full stack app, maybe somebody from my community that wants to get this code base into modern tech. Let's say that they're adding a new news feed or a feature that lets you play back video, and they want to have a really nice comment section where things update live. Rails isn't going to provide a great experience for that. So much of the right path depends on why you are doing the thing or why you are deciding to do the rewrite. So let's say this is the code base. We want a really good interactive feature, something that's very app-like in the behavior, where there's like 3 routes that interact with each other. You have like the news feed, the video, and the live comment, and those are all different routes. What you could do from there is build your new feature. So we'll make this a circle, so it's different. Actually, I'll just make the box green. And we'll say this new feature has 3 routes, gets data. I'll specify more about that after. 3 routes, 1 TS.js expert, 2 Rails people learning, and 20,000 LOC. Maybe it doesn't even need that much. Maybe you could get away with like 8,000, which you probably can, depending on how you're building it, what the code base is. This could be a Vite app that you mount internally. This could be a Next.js app that connects to Rails and serves like things there. Whatever makes the most sense for what you're building is going to depend a lot on how you're building. I want to take a more like higher level approach where we look at a big Rails app and break it down into pieces. So we have this Rails app, and it has all these different endpoints. But we want to add a new one. So we want to make a new feature. We could build this here. We could still build this here the way that we used to. Or we could build this somewhere else in a new parallel stack. Actually, I'll write this This is such a hard thing to diagram. I should have thought this one through more. Normally, I think of these rants a lot longer before I do them. Big Rails app. So in this, every one of these boxes is a route. I'm thinking of a route as a thing that a user goes to that serves data and HTML. So each of these is almost like a page. So we have our big Rails app. This Rails app has, let's say this is /home /sign-in /profile /feed. So your app has, what the hell, all of these endpoints in it. And you want to make /chat. Option 1 would be you take the thing you're already doing, you make a new thing here. /chat just works the same way as it always did. Or you can take the opportunity to start up your replacement next app. And this guy might only have that one box in it. But it still needs sign-in. So when it needs sign-in, it can reference the sign-in over here. And from this point, you have a few options. you can use a rewrite or a virtual binding of some form to have the /chat endpoint here rewrite to your next app. No, Rails rewrite to next, or Rails. Yeah, I think I want to confuse here because rewrite doesn't mean like rewriting this thing in next. It means that you're using the URL itself when the request comes through to point at this other application. Somebody mentioned that this is the strangler approach. It very much is. You start by building a new thing to proxy requests from one specific endpoint that you're now adding to this other service. Yeah, HTTP rewrite. I'll just say HTTP rewrite to next. Cool. So you HTTP rewrite this request. Now I'm going to copy this and move it because I'm going to want to screw with that more in a bit. And now let's say that the feed feels laggy and the team wants to start working on more features, but the best developer for it's the one who did this rewrite and they don't want to touch the old way of doing things. Maybe what they might do is they'll convert this to be an API endpoint. So /feed maybe is now two parts. So /feed could be a redirect. And then the other half of it, in case they don't feel like rewriting the backend as well, which they probably don't, can be /feed/API. And this could still live here. So when you go to /feed, it could rewrite to and then you have /feed here. But when you go there on that client, this guy could make a request to the API for the data it needs to actually render. And now you've taken this old endpoint, taken the data it was returning that now as JSON instead, and the feed itself, the old URL, rewrites to be on your next app. And you can go through until, actually, this might even be the point where you want to do it, where you realize, oh, I can port profile and home in 10 minutes, but sign-in's going to be annoying, at which point you flip the dynamic. And instead, you make everything you can point at the next app instead. And we'll have /home, /signin, and /profile. And maybe the sign-in, since this is annoying, is virtual and hits there still. But then you just delete the rest. Kill that, kill that, kill this. Kill that guy. And now you have this one old API from this other service that you're still hitting for the feed. You ported the pages that were pretty quick to port, and you still reference the sign-in from the old app because this is annoying to touch. Eventually, someone will get to it, but it's not the top priority right now. But you did it. Here you go. You just moved your big Rails app over to your fancy replacement Next app, piece by piece, by taking advantage of tools like HTTP rewrites, the ability to switch from an endpoint serving HTML to serving JavaScript on an API version of that endpoint. I demonstrated like the 3 different ways to move here. You can use a rewrite to take an existing app and port some URLs over to it. You can switch from returning HTML on the server to returning JSON on the server to consume that somewhere else, like a Next.js application. And eventually, once you've moved enough over, you can switch to the rewrite, like the new application, and pick the specific URLs and the specific routes that are hard to port over and rewrite the other way back. Somebody asked in chat, what's the difference between a rewrite and a redirect? A redirect sends you to a different place. A rewrite sends your request to a different place, but doesn't change the URL. So the big difference is the URL doesn't change, which is important because as far as your application understands, there isn't another place. It is in the same application. Hope this was helpful. I want to be very clear. Not everyone should rewrite everything, but if you've decided you should for any of the reasons we talked about here, this is the type of granular approach I would recommend. I see a lot of others recommending things like trying to have one code base that is both Rails and Next.js, or trying to build a mono repo where they port from an old dialect of JavaScript to modern TypeScript. Those types of rewrites can be done with a lot of effort, but they are scary as hell and come with a lot of the technical debt that you're trying to get out of. Generally speaking, the most value comes from one of these replacements when it's an actual replacement, when you get to draw a clean line and start on the new thing, and then build interop at like a network layer rather than into the code itself. Code level interop is going to prevent you from having a lot of the wins you're looking for with a rewrite like this, and it's easy to fall for that trap. Somebody asked in YouTube chat, what's wrong with HTML over the wire? Nothing. Next is HTML over the wire. The problem is you cannot consume HTML over the wire in a different application. If you've decided you don't want to work in your big Rails app anymore, and this sends you JSON, or this sends you HTML, good luck, have fun with that. If this is changed to send you JSON instead, and you can consume that externally, that's a much better experience. Hope this one was helpful. I know this is a weird rant to go on, but I see a lot of people who I know would benefit from it. Hey, did you know that over half my viewers haven't subscribed yet? That's insane. Y'all just click these videos and listen to me shout and hope that the algorithm is going to show you the next one. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, maybe even the bell next to it so that you know when I'm posting videos. Also, if you didn't know this, almost all of my content is live streamed on Twitch while I'm making it. Everything on the YouTube is cuts, clips, whatever from my Twitch show. So if you're not already watching, make sure you go to twitch.tv/Theo, where I'm live every Wednesday around 2 or 3 p.m. And I go live on Fridays pretty often as well. Thank you again for watching this video. Really excited. Thank you.